Good afternoon. Today is April 30th, Tuesday, 2019, Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting, item 13A. This is public hearing in order 1903-30-08 in the matter of annexing territory to the McKenzie Fire and Rescue District to provide fire protection service to the annexed territory consisting of 19-acre portion of Assessor's Map 16-25-27 lot, tax lot number 400. And with us to discuss this is Rachel Surslev, planner with Lane County Land Management Division. And Ms. Surslev, would you like to make some comments before I read the procedural rules for this public hearing?
No, I don't need to make comments now. I can just wait until we hear a report by staff.
Okay, so let's hear the report by staff first, and then we'll have the public hearing. Or do you want to do the public hearing first?
You can go ahead and open it, and then I'll give the report.
Okay, at this time, we are opening the public hearing on Order 1904-30-08. And at this time, we will go down the list. This is a public hearing on a matter which gives opportunity for those present to enter information into the record. And if the board approves the proposal, the board can adopt a final order on the annexation. And the decision criteria for special district annexations are established in Lane County Board Order 19-04-30, which is cited in our agenda cover memorandum. At this time, I will ask if there are commissioners who wish to disclose ex parte contacts or abstentions due to conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, or biases. Are there any commissioners that want to make such a statement at this time?
Nope.
Nope. Seeing none, I'll ask the audience, are there any members of the audience that wish to challenge the hearings authority, that's the Board of Commissioners authority and qualifications to hear this matter? Nope. So at this time, our public hearing is opened, and at this time now we are asking staff to make a report. Welcome, Ms. Surslev.
Thank you, Chair Sorensen, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Rachel Surslev, staff planner on this application. The request before you today is the annexation of a portion of a single tax lot into the McKenzie Fire and Rescue District. The area being annexed is a 19.2 acres of Assessor's Map 16-25-27 tax lot 400. The remaining acres of the tax lots that's being annexed is already within the fire district. This petition was initiated pursuant to ORS 198.857 for the annexation of a property by a single landowner and pursuant to Lane County Board Order 07-12-12-19, which provides guidance for processing applications related to special district boundaries. Public notice as required by ORS 198 and the board's order was posted, published, and mailed. As of today, I have not received any written comments about this application. Generally, the territory proposed to be annexed is located northeast of the unincorporated community of Vida, north of McKenzie Highway. Properties surrounding the subject property are also within the boundaries of McKenzie Fire Protection District, except for two of them that are to the north of that property. The subject property does have conditional approval for a dwelling, and one of the conditions of approval for that dwelling is to be either annexed into a fire district or demonstrate residential fire protection by contract. So the applicant has chosen to do the annexation. Approval of this request by the board will enable the conditionally approved dwelling to have fire protection services by amending the boundaries of the fire district. The applicant has provided information and findings addressing the approval criteria in their application, and staff has found that the applicable approval criteria has been met in this case, and these findings are included in the agenda cover memo. Most notably, the applicant has included written approval of the annexation request from the Mackenzie Fire and Rescue District Board of Directors. This is evidenced by a resolution dated April 12, 2018, as provided as attachment 2 of your packet. And based on this approval by the fire district and the findings made by staff, staff recommend that the board approve the annexation. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do commissioners have any questions for Ms. Serslev? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move now to the public testimony. At this time, I'll call for any applicant's testimony. Is there any applicant's testimony? Seeing none, we will move to any testimony of people in favor of this matter. Seeing none, we'll move to testimony of other people. Seeing none, we will ask for additional comments from staff.
I have none.
None. We will ask for applicant rebuttal. None. At this time, we will now close the public hearing, and we will turn to the board for a discussion or motion.
All right, I'll make a motion. Oh, there it went. Sorry. Okay. Technology. I'll make a motion to approve item 13A on today's consent calendar for order 19-04-30-08 as presented.
Okay, there is a motion to approve order 19-04-30-08, which is to annex territory into the Mackenzie Fire and Rescue District. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Bozovich to approve the order as presented. Any further comment, debate, et cetera? Commissioner Farr.
If I may, just to compliment, Ms. Serslev, I want to compliment you on your presentations. You're very clear, very concise, you get it out there, and even though nobody out there seems to care, it's very well done. I'd like to say that right in front of the person who I think is your boss. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll also add that in reading over this agenda item, I thought, well, this is not going to be a controversial thing. It hardly ever is. I can only remember one time when we had an annexation that was particularly controversial. And yet, that's why we're here, right? We're here to do the job that we're here to do. And so if that is to sit here and have a public hearing at which no one attends, that's what the law requires. And these folks in these 19.2 acres are going to get the fire protection because we did all this. And nobody's really going to care until maybe ever. Hopefully there won't be any fires, but if there are, at least these people are better protected. So I agree with Commissioner Farr. Thank you so much, Rachel, specifically. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The motion carries 5-0. All commissioners voting in the affirmative, and the order is adopted. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And now we are turning to 2 items under assessment and taxation. I'll ask Mr. Coles to come forward, bring whoever you'd like to the table. And at this time, I'm going to read item 14A, which is order 19-04-30-09 in the matter of approving submission of the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance, CAFA, grant application to the Oregon Department of Revenue for fiscal year 2019-20. This is our opportunity to submit the grant application so that we receive funds from the state to perform the assessment and taxation function. Welcome, Mr. Coles.
Thank you, Chair Sorensen. Thank you, Commissioners. Today I come before you with the CAFA grant presentation. I'm going to do it a little differently in prior years, just because we have the two new commissioners to explain a little more detailed information. Hope that works out well. The CAFA grant was originally established in 1989. It was as a result of the deterioration of the property tax system statewide. It was essentially funded by two areas. One was a recording fee, and the second area was part of delinquent property tax interest. It goes to a statewide pool and is redistributed back to the counties and the Oregon Department of Revenue by percentages based on expenditures that are approved by the Oregon Department of Revenue. It's a yearly grant submission. Originally, back in 89, 90, and wasn't with the county at that time, but originally the percentage of CAFA grant reimbursement was 35, maybe 40% as far as originally intended. However, over the years, that's gone down to 17% roughly. It's been 16, 17.
40% of what?
Of expenditures, I'm sorry. So if, like right now, our budget is roughly $7 million for assessment taxation. The CAFA grant right now is expected to bring in about $1.1 million, so it's about 17%. So back in the prior days where our budget might have been a little lower, obviously, years back, actually it was more because we had quite a bit more staff. It was provided by the state from the recording fees and the delinquent interest for the 35, 40% for the reimbursement from the state. In the board packet, there is quite a bit of history over the years, and I'll spare you from reading too much of the history, but it goes through the years that assessment taxation has gone through cuts and adds over the years, and quite a bit of history on also the legislative history standpoint of how the House bill originally was revised. One of the biggest revisions was the legislature in 1999 contributed general fund dollars to the CAFA grant, and that was pulled away. I believe it was 5 or 6 years ago, off the top of my head. So right now, the CAFA grant does not have general fund dollars for the state of Oregon inside it. It's all dollars that the citizens of Lane County and all other counties in the state of Oregon pay in the interest and also the recording fees. I have to make note that the CAFA grant is a grant that we are, Lane County, a donor county, where we pay more into it than we receive. And it's just the structure of the original grant. Typically, the larger counties do pay more into it, and then the smaller counties receive more than they pay into it. It's worked fairly well, with the exception of the declining reimbursement rates over the years. And part of that reimbursement declining is not only the general fund dollars, but the increase in expenditures over the years also. So, trying to think if there's anything else that is major. There's quite a bit of information about financial considerations. Every year, the Oregon Department of Revenue gives us a preliminary forecast and a final forecast of how recording fees are statewide, how the delinquent interest is statewide, and also there's a minor component of the CAFA grant for interest on those items that also is contributed to the fund that's distributed among the counties. The overall percentage from the prior year is pretty similar to what last year's was. Last year's was about 17%, and this year's also expected to be about 16.5%, 17% for reimbursement of our expenditures. That said, any questions from the Chair, Commissioner?
Okay, any questions? Yep.
So, Mike, I know when we had to make the cuts in 11 and 12, we had to reduce your staff and we had to ask for an exception to continue getting our CAFA grant based on we're supposed to maintain a certain level of staffing and all that. Are we still having to ask for that exception?
We don't officially have to ask for that exception. However, the Department of Revenue has loosened up a little bit in their guidelines for alternative reappraisal standards. We do a lot of recalculation now. Essentially, all of our residential accounts are modeled and valued in-house, with the exception of about 4,000 or 5,000 that are appraised each year from physical inspections. So the warning essentially that they gave us, or the variance when they came and did the review of our counties, officially still stands, but they haven't, since they haven't revoked it or changed it, but they don't include that verbiage in their paperwork to us when they certify the CAFA grant. They are still concerned about Lane County and numerous other counties that are, especially ONC counties. The counties that are also have lower permit tax rates. But I believe that the Oregon Department of Revenue, with the current administration, we are working very well together to work out any issues or problems. We have a really close relationship. I have biweekly or monthly, depending on the administration, phone calls with the director of Oregon Department of Revenue to make sure we're on track. And with our ratio study that we turn in each year, we certify that we're at 100% of real market value. Obviously, our staffing is still low. We have 49 staff members, including administration. Back when staffing was cut, we cut a whole series of office assistants. We also cut appraisal positions. And so we've had to adapt over the years using different alternative methods for valuation and prioritizing our work to make sure it's done correctly and accurately to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, so kind of as a follow-up, wasn't there a bill proposed this year in the legislature that was going to add funds for some of the counties that were having difficulty to try and assist in, I guess they were going to try and do it through some kind of alternative funding stream. And at one point, they were talking about having districts pay a percent, but then they changed that. But it was going to add to your ability to do more appraisals, on-site appraisals, to try and help add value to
Chair
support the districts.
Sorensen, Commissioner Buckridge, it is 2104. And that bill is on hold right now. It is waiting for some of the larger packages to go through for the income cap and trade and some other packages. I'm hoping it still does go through. Essentially what that bill would do would allow for a reduction in the commercial industrial property tax discount for down 1%, and that would be distributed essentially 10% to the Oregon Department of Revenue, and then additional funds to the counties in the form of either grant programs or additional CAFA funds. I've been watching that pretty closely. I probably will go testify for the legislature when that does go in front of the House Revenue Committee or the joint committees. And right now it's kind of, I don't know the odds of it passing, but I hope it does, because that will add considerable additional funds, close to, the first calculation was right around $900,000, $1 million, but I think it's going to be a little less depending on overall at the end of the legislative cycle. As far as in the end of the calculations, it's probably going to be $800,000 or somewhat, that which would be 8 or 9 positions or more for our office, which would be incredible.
Yeah, which would help go out and look for missing value that's not being taxed right now, which would benefit all of the districts in Lane County. Seeing Lane County only gets about 11 to 12 cents on a dollar, depending on where you live. That other 88 to 89 cents is going to school districts, fire districts, library districts, and cities across the county, other special districts. So, I hope that eventually the legislature, appreciates how much that's going to be helpful, and kind of, that rising tide will float all boats as we look for ways to deal with trying to prevent a lot of the service cuts in local government from, libraries, schools, and cities. So I appreciate your efforts on that legislation.
Chair Sorensen, Commissioner Bozievich. I definitely agree as far as the additional funds would help out definitely, and just the focus on assessment taxation and the needs that are needed statewide. Even if the bill doesn't pass, it's bringing great attention. In fact, the governor's PERS document highlighted in 2104 as part of the reform in the PERS document, which is kind of a strange area to put it, but at least it's been highlighted. It was initially put in the governor's budget. I worked with the county administrator, Steve Krajewski, and myself, and two other assessors with the governor's office to help frame the 2104 and the Oregon Department of Revenue. So I really do hope that goes forward.
Okay. Any other questions? Good. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Coles, and thanks so much for all your hard work and in your main job, but also in this component of trying to get us a fair shake in terms of the CAFA grant and how the state comes up with the formula and how they give us the money and how we'd like to get more money and how to make it fair for everybody. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion on the?
Yes.
We probably do if we have a proposed order. So Commissioner Bozievich.
I'll move approval of Order 1904-3009 in the matter of approving submission of the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Grant application to the Oregon Department of Revenue for FY 1920.
Second?
And good. And for all of you out there that speak fluent Bostonian, CAFA is not a small cow, okay? All right. So,
Thank you for clarifying.
yeah. It took me about 3 years to learn that around here. Okay, so I just want to say thank you so much for this. I wish we were at a point where we didn't have to do this. I really do. I think if we had some kind of other funding mechanism, and I know the counties have proposed a percentage of the funds collected or something, but then that usually comes out of somebody's hide, and typically that's out of public schools, which isn't a good thing in my mind, but it'd be nice if we had some other funding formula, so I'll just say it that way. Okay. Anything further from board? Nope. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Order 19-04-30-09 is adopted by unanimous vote. Next, we'll call up Mr. Coles and Ms. Sanchez, Valerie Sanchez. She's our Human Resources Senior Management Analyst. And of course, Mr. Coles, previously introduced, Lane County Assessor. This is Order 19-04-30-10 in the matter of establishing the Assessment and Taxation Specialist Classification and Salary Range. And how do you folks want to make this presentation?
I will go ahead and start off and
Okay.
give the main presentation, and then if there's any additional questions, it can be spread out between us both, if that works for you.
That works.
Okay, thank you so much. Please proceed.
So I am really excited about this change. This has been something that Assessor Gangle, Assessor Spickard, and myself and managerial staff have wanted to do for quite a long time. So this is a really big deal. I think that we might have some staff here. I haven't looked behind me to see if there is staff here. But just to put it in a little perspective, we have specialists in our department, and traditionally they've been called office assistants, senior office assistants. We don't have any office assistant twos, or all office assistant seniors. And there's 16 positions, is that correct?
That's correct.
That specialize in areas from exemptions, personal property, segregations, divisions, everything you could think of. I probably forgot of 3 or 4 different areas, but pretty much anything with the taxation side, on the administrative standpoint and specialist expert standpoint, our office assistants, senior office assistants take care of. And they're very detail-orientated, professional job duties that it takes a number of years to work up to the expertise that is needed for these positions. And looking at other counties and just the positions themselves, we have assessment taxation, working with HR, working with the county administrator, and also working with ASME. I came up with the classification of assessment taxation specialist. Make sure I got that right, because we had, yes. And that specialist position is a step above the current senior OA position.
It's actually grade 24, which is the, starts at the min of, get my glasses on here, 1913 and a max of 2651.
And so it is just my pleasure to bring this in front of the board and open for questions and any comments that you may have.
Okay, Commissioner Farr?
Just one thing, Mr. Coles, it's really hard to see you this excited.
Yes.
Please contain yourself.
Really, we have to observe some decorum here.
I made it also just a side note.
Really, Mike, I'm not kidding, really.
I'm trying to hold
down.
down here. It is very exciting, and it is a long time coming, Chair Sorensen, Commissioner Farr. It is something that really, it's been a collaborative effort between not only the county working, A&T working with the HR and the county administration, but going to the ASME and then working out an MOU to finalize that change. And it's a very, I think it's a very positive change, and I think that it's well deserving for the employees that are being reclassified.
Clear reason for the excitement. That's all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, Commissioner?
We're just going to make a motion if we're ready for it.
We're ready.
Okay. I move to approve agenda item 14B, order 19-04-30-10, in the matter of establishing the assessment and taxation specialist classification and salary range as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Burney to approve Order 19-04-30-10 as presented. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
So are all you guys back there subject to this?
Not there.
Oh, just a few, okay. And congratulations, and prematurely. What was the salary, what is it changing salary to? I see what it will become.
It's one grade, which is about 2.5.
So previously, the
Thank
grade
you.
was at grade 20.
Okay, thank you very
We're
much.
moving to grade 24.
Yeah.
And how does that compare then? I heard you say this is making us competitive with other counties. Is that,
That is
I'll
correct.
ask you, Ms. Sanchez, that question.
That is correct. So when we do new classifications, we look at internal equity and also do a market. So we did do a market with our comparable counties.
Okay,
I was still.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So earlier, we were suggested by a consultant that we should celebrate when the county and AFSCME creates better working conditions for its employees. Is this such an example
It is.
of working together? Great, thank you.
Okay, very good. So we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously to approve Order 19-04-30-10. Congratulations. Thanks for coming.
And now the
And-
balloons.
There you go. And Mike, the excitement was just overwhelming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I hope you come down from this. Okay. All right. So we are ready to go back to the top of the page to see what else we need to do. No emergency business. Mr. Mokreisky, if I called on you for number 5, could you say some things about County Day for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is and sorry we weren't able to, Laura Vincent, our recruitment coordinator, was here and prepared to make comments to introduce the group. and just because we had such a lively public comment this morning, which actually was a great opportunity for the students to hear that public comment, they had to go on to their presentation. But just wanted to share that this is the third annual county day that we've hosted. It's really been, we've done a lot to build our relationship and our partnership with the University of Oregon. We recognize we have this incredible talent that's being trained at the university, and we've tried to find formal ways to tap into that, both to recruit, employees, prospective employees, as well as to share knowledge and engage these students in research and analysis on county issues that we're dealing with. So, third annual one, we actually have hired several of these students as interns through our paid internship program. In the summer of 2018, we had 3 of the students who went through the County Day event that became part of that effort. One of them worked with Dr. Creer on the audit that you're going to hear about tomorrow. So today we had 15 students from the University of Oregon 3 p.m. program, the Planning, Public Policy, and Management program, graduate students. They heard 11 presenters. I stepped out at 11 o'clock to give a presentation about some of the things we're working on in my role here in the organization. They heard from Mo Young about equity and access work. They heard about our strategic plan, technology. They heard from the performance auditor, from Public Works, Human Resources, the assessor, a sheriff's deputy. They went over to the Charlton building and toured that, met with Karen Gaffney, talked about economic development with Sarah Means, and the budget process with Christine Moody. So great opportunity. We handed out cards, pitched to them to contact us if they're interested. I like getting coffee or meeting with students if they're interested, and we'll continue doing that County Day event that we've seen a lot of benefit from. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Farr?
Thank you. They did get a good indoctrination as to what a board meeting can be like this morning. A bit disappointing because there are a couple of people who were sitting out there who I had a chance to speak to their class last week. And we talked about lobbyists. They wanted to know about lobbyists. And a couple of points that I'd like to have made in front of everybody in the room is that as a lobbyist, you have to be able to clearly articulate not only your view, but your opponent's view. To whoever it is you're talking to. And very critical that a lobbyist does not exaggerate or inflate the statements that they're making. Otherwise, they become untrustworthy. But the important thing was that there was a Cottage Grove City Councilor among the group of 3 p.m. students this morning. I don't know if you all recognize Jake Boone was sitting in the room this morning. So he's a 3 p.m. student and a councilor in Cottage Grove. So.
Good. Okay. And we don't have any county council announcements that I'm aware of, so we'll turn to item 9, county administration announcements.
A few things, Mr. Chair. First, an elections update for you. Today is voter registration deadline. So if you haven't registered, you have just under 3 hours. 5 p.m. today is the deadline. We currently have over 261,000 active registered voters in Lane County. 3 ways to register or update your registration. Go to OregonVotes.gov no later than 11:59 p.m. tonight. So you have longer if you do it online. For those who have an Oregon driver's license, permit, or ID card, that's OregonVotes.gov. 2, you can deliver a completed registration card to Lane County Elections no later than 5 today. Or you can mail a completed card to elections with the postmark of today. So 3 ways to update or register to vote. Statutory deadlines have been met for mailing ballots to 1,035 military or out-of-country ballots. Those were mailed on April 5th. 762 out-of-state voters were mailed on April 22nd. Local ballots will be mailed Thursday, May 5th. And all 20 drop site locations are open on Thursday, May 2nd. Information concerning current elections can be found at lanecounty.org/elections and select the May 21st, 2019 link. I imagine all of you received your voter pamphlet, so that has been obviously completed and mailed to all registered voters' addresses. I want to also share that May, since this is the last board, tomorrow is May 1st, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So with an eye towards mental health in the workplace, health and wellness in the workplace. I'll pass this out and share it with commissioners. We are doing a number of things. We shared that we're going to be doing a mindfulness training session with our CHC employees, so we're excited about that. Eva, our nurse practitioner at the Wellness Center, has done this. There's been heavy demand for mindfulness training. It's been really effective in high-stress environments, including parole and probation, where they've had a series of mindfulness trainings, and so we're going to continue to roll that out in different places. But we're also offering one-on-one counseling at our Wellness Center for employees. As you may recall, we added funding for mental health, a behavioral health counselor at the clinic in the current year's budget. You can also do group mindfulness and resiliency sessions through the Wellness Clinic. You can schedule an appointment with one of our providers that will refer you to a licensed professional counselor that's on site. So encourage for our employees to contact the Wellness Center, the Live Well Center at 541-603-7930 to make an appointment. And I'll pass these out, we'll make these available, but just a reminder that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, something that we talk about a lot as a service provider in the community, and also important to remember the programs and services we have available for our employees who have high-stress jobs as well. Then I have a couple updates on assignments that I needed to update the board on here. First, there was a request to report back to the board. We were required to report back to the board on the TAC report, the homelessness feasibility study by May 1st. We have a steering committee called the TAC Steering Committee, Implementation Steering Committee, that has been formed and met 4 or 5 times now. I think we have 1 or 2 meetings left. We do have a joint elected official meeting scheduled between the Eugene City Council and the Board of Commissioners for May 13th at 5:30 p.m. So just a brief update on that. The steering committee that includes 2 Commissioners Buck and Farr, myself, so the city manager, the mayor, and Councilor Syrett, and 2 members of the Poverty and Homelessness Board, are wrapping up our work, and will finalize a implementation plan report that will go to the 2 bodies, and the final report then will be presented on May 13th. Secondly, there was a request to provide an update on winter strategies and car camping sites, and with this is an item that we'll continue to work on. I just want to share that this is also part of the steering committee's efforts. You'll hear also, hopefully, if you haven't read the budget message as of yet, Thursday night we'll talk about this, the additional funding that we've included in next year's proposed budget for the enhanced winter strategies that we launched this year. This year's enhancements were not budgeted. We made them happen through one-time reserves that we tapped into, but we're actually budgeting resources for next year to continue that. We also continue to look, we are expanding. You heard Mr. McAllister mention in public comment this morning, and I didn't have a chance to say this while he was here. We are expanding or extending the beds. So it was scheduled for April 30th for the beds to close, the dawn-to-dawn beds. We are expanding that. They're starting to ramp down, but we are going to continue that through the end of June. Not at the same number. We had 240 beds, I believe, that were available. We're going to ramp that down, but there still will be beds available. So we continue to identify additional funding to make that happen. And then what we're working on and having conversations with the city of Eugene is how do we actually look at funding some element of a year-round dawn-to-dawn program, not at the same level, the same number of beds as we do for the winter strategies, but some level of that. So I want to share that with the board, that all of these things we are in constant conversations, but I know there's always concern about we take action, we make some services available, and then a date hits and does it all go away? So we're mindful of that and working in partnership with the city to make sure that we don't eliminate, we just sort of adjust based on what the needs are. So that's my update on that one, and we'll have more in the future on that. And then 2 more quickly, Mr. Chair. There was also a request to have a briefing for the board on emergency services protocol. So we're going to have a joint presentation by our emergency manager and our county council on July 24th. And that will be a general information session, so we're not assigning homework to the board as of yet, but we'll talk more about potential ICS, Incident Command System training that the commissioners can take if you haven't taken that. And we're viewing this emergency management training for commissioners not as a one-time work session, but as a series. Not unlike budgeting. Budgeting is not something we do at one point and then we finish and then we just come back to it at that same point the following year. We're going to sort of integrate this into our regular business. So expect a presentation on July 24th, but also expect that you're not going to get everything at that time. But we are committing to come back in regular course of business to conduct those trainings and make it part of our muscle memory and regular business. Finally, this has come up a few times, but Commissioner Burney had requested a report back on organizations. It came up in public comment today that Lane County funds, the name of the organization, the amount we pay, mission of the organization, and how it benefits Lane County. We will have binders for commissioners and the budget committee members, and in there is a tab. We do this every year. We tell the board what are the associations we're members of and what we pay for. What we're doing a little bit more of this year because it was requested is some additional information about those organizations. But you will have a tab. So actually you should have that if you picked up your binder. There's a tab in there, and I don't have it in front of me, but I have it in mine. It says, I don't know what it says, but we can point that to you here in the next day or so. It gives you a list of the associations that we fund through the budget. These are countywide. It includes the Association of O&C Counties, how much we pay. And then there were a few organizations we didn't have supplemental information for. We've requested that. Association of O&C Counties is one of those organizations. So we will continue to follow up with that, but we're wanting to make sure commissioners have all of that or as much of it as possible as we head into the budget process. So if you still feel like there's information we haven't provided related to that request, let us know and we'll get it to you.
May I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Buck and I, because we're new, we actually attended the budget orientation and it was pointed out to us. And so we've looked at that and are well aware and appreciative that you're doing that.
Okay, great. And then a board retreat. We had scheduled a board retreat for July 10th, but that's not going to work because we don't have all commissioners available. We had talked about a day that the board can just spend sort of in a few hours in a training. Working together, building relationship, understanding perspectives, and a facilitated session. We're still looking for that date because we want to make sure all 5 commissioners are available. So the idea is that we would take a few hours in a morning that would be just for the 5 commissioners and a few key staff to help facilitate, but mostly just to allow all of you time in a facilitated session. And then maybe lunch, and then an afternoon session for a few hours where we would invite representatives from throughout the organization from key areas, department directors, elected officials, and some other key staff that work regularly with the board to dive into some more specific things around strategies and goals and other pieces. So that's what we're noodling and working on. We'll have more details as that evolves, and the board can give us feedback on what you like or how you want to adjust that, but I just want to give that update to you. We're still searching for a date, and we're going to work with a facilitator and make sure that that happens whenever we can get all 5 of you together. That's it. Thanks for the time to share all of that.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to turn to item 10, Commissioners' announcements. Any announcements?
I do.
Yep, Commissioner?
We were going to have a meeting on Sears Road on May 13th, but we are now having a joint meeting with the City of Eugene on the TAC implementation layout or rollout. And so we will be rescheduling that event here, and when I know that date, I will let everybody know.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other requests for announcements?
I have an announcement. This
Okay.
is pretty important. And, you know, before I came to this country, there's a team that really meant a great deal to me. It's called Sheffield United. And in England, there are 5 major leagues of soccer, and they're hierarchical. They're not like major leagues of baseball. If you get better, if you get to the top of one league, you go up to the next, you go up to the next. The top one is Premiership. we're all familiar with premierships, perhaps. You might have heard of Manchester United, Leicester. Well, Sheffield United over the weekend got promoted to premiership. The first time, only the second time since I left England. So it's pretty big news, and you wonder what my tie is. This is a Sheffield United tie with no less than 5 Sheffield United logos on it. Enough to spare if you all want one. So as we say in Sheffield, up the blades. So, very, very good weekend for Sheffielders.
Up the blades is not a derogatory term.
It's a wonderful term. It means so many things. Yeah, right.
Okay, now, under item 10B, agenda team requests and work session requests, I had a couple. The first is,
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I blew it completely. May I make?
don't blow it, what is it?
It's too
We're
late.
doing a do-over.
Too late.
We're gonna have a do-over here at the Board of Commissioners.
Is an announcement sharing something that occurred, or is it talking about something? If that's
It could
okay.
be pretty much anything
Okay,
out of
I
your
want, I
mouth,
want to,
pretty much.
don't start me laughing. I just want to share and thank county staff. I thought it was strategic that the county participate in a Springfield-centric event, which was a fundraiser for the homeless that Catholic Community Services provides. Mr. Mokrahysky in the county did sponsor that. There were 6 Springfield City Council members there. They were delighted to see that we had a presence. And we talked it up quite a bit. And I think you're going to find that the city of Springfield, over the next few months, will assign 1 or 2 council members, if the TAC group so wants them, to participate and to integrate from a coordination role, not to change the many investments they're making in housing, working family housing, low-income housing, and homeless services, but also simply to coordinate so that they can be part of a countywide overall plan. And I wanted to thank you for that and share that with everybody. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Mayor Lundberg said that she and you have been talking about that, and
Quite a lot.
excellent.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, well, in terms of announcements, continuing announcement theme, one thing I would mention too is this May 13, 5:30 PM work session with the City of Eugene right here in Harris Hall. I think that'll be an important event for the city and the county and for the city of Springfield. So please mark your calendars for that. And please keep Ms. Jones informed of your availability so we can plan this retreat on any Wednesday when the board is meeting throughout the summer, so we can get a head count and start planning that. Okay, now we can move to item 10B, and I have a couple of items on 10B, the agenda team requests and work session requests. The first is this proposal for the 3 Conestoga camp at 13th and Tyler in Eugene. And this Eugene Police Department just received funding to build, I believe it's 10 Conestoga huts that they will be able to distribute. And so one idea is that if part of the costs associated with a 3-unit program there at the corner of 13th and Tyler, that apparently the Eugene Police Department could supply that. Secondly, Eric DeBurr of Community Supported Shelters said they would manage the 3 units. Now, the land is owned by the county. It was acquired by the county as on the corner of 13th and Tyler. It was a residence. We acquired it, and it hasn't been used much. The land, the house was raised, but it hasn't been used much. And so, with the neighborhood being relatively supportive, I'd like to move ahead with a work session on this. Certainly, the fair is involved in this. Certainly, Lane County Health and Human Services, and of course, the neighborhood group and the advocates. We did get this memo from Jay Mosley, the West Side Shelter Search Team, and I think I've spoken to every member of this several times and toured the site. So I'd like to get 3 commissioners to agree to a work session on this and see if this is something we could pursue.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And if I may, the Conestogas are really, once, as I mentioned this morning to Jay Mosley, a very small footprint, very easy to administer, very unobtrusive to surrounding businesses, to surrounding residences. They're used throughout town and Springfield fairly extensively, and it's a relatively dignified place to live, dignified as compared to a canvas tent. Certainly not this permanent housing that we're looking for, Ms. Mokraska, but the Conestogas, I would like to, I'm a yes, big head yes on this one, head nod yes, but I'd like to also continue the talk regarding placing Conestogas on other county properties that are currently unused that fit in with the adjacent county uses. We have a number of properties, we've discussed them at length, and as we move forward with Conestogas, it can have, just a few of them can have a huge impact on the people who leave a canvas tent and live in a Conestoga instead.
And one of the main problems that homeless people have is they don't have any place to put their stuff. And so one of the main advantages of these Conestogas is they can be locked, and that could be a big, that enables people to take showers and apply for jobs and take public transit and lots of things. So I just would like to be supportive of the neighborhood advocates, and again, will this solve the problem? No, it will not solve the problem, but it will solve the problem for 3 people, or at least help them. So I'd like to move forward with that. And again, I think that the fair is part of this because they own the property. The Health and Human Services is part of it to make sure that this is done in a fair and proper manner and pull together who's going to get the screening, because that's a big concern of mine, to make sure it's screened from the rest of the fair and fairgrounds activities. So I'll take that as a yes. Mr. Mokraski, we're trying around here to be more clear with these assignments. So I'll ask, do you have any concerns about the way I've phrased it so far?
I have a work session with Health and Human Services, Public Works, the Fair Board, and neighbors to discuss 3 Conestoga huts on 13th and Tyler.
Yeah, okay, very good. And if Health and Human Services could get the police department involved as being the people that have at least 3 Conestogas available, that would be good. Yeah.
I'll give my head nod to that because it does include the fair folks and Corey's involvement so we can understand impacts. But I'd also like to ask that they look at operational cost. Are we going to need to be supplying electricity, water, porta potties, and is the community supportive services folks are they looking for annual stipend to provide that management
Yep.
of the site? So I'd kind of like to understand what the budget is for 3 sites versus whether that's an effective use
Right.
of fund in this case. So.
Exactly, and where the funds would come from.
Yeah.
Okay, any concerns?
Oh, no, I'm not familiar with the property. Why the number 3 as opposed to 5?
The number 3 was selected by the advocates because of the West Eugene neighborhood already has a substantial number of social service programs, and they have concerns, the neighborhoods have concerns about the number of people with drug and alcohol problems, the number of people that have mental health problems, and they want to accept a certain number, but they don't necessarily want to accept all of the people in the county that need these services. I think it's a great question because I would like to know that too, but that's the reason they are advocating the 3.
It's a wonderful start.
Is because they don't want to be in a conflict with the neighbors over it, and the neighbors apparently do support this. Okay, the second is the board got, or at least I got, 2 letters, one from Tracktown USA and one from Travel Lane County. So I'll pass these along to Diana Jones so they can be put the website. But these letters, one deals with, the Tracktown USA letter deals with a request they have for $500,000 cash support in hosting the Olympic trials. And so Tracktown USA, which is a nonprofit group that is formed to bring the trials to Lane County, they want to get going with this project, and they would like to have a work session with us, August, September timeline, and I think we should go ahead with that. Secondly, and related, because it's track and field, is Kerry Westland, the president and CEO of Eugene Cascades and Coast, also known as Travel Lane County. They are, I guess they are asking for a work session also on the topic of the 2020 Olympic track and field trials. And I think that their focus is on the economics of these major track and field events. And Mr. Mokrahysky and the agenda team briefly discussed this today, and I'll just ask you to clarify what you think we should be doing, and I'll modify my request to match your ideas.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that we've had this conversation, I've had this conversation about the requests that have come in to Lane County, City of Eugene, and City of Springfield. We've all received requests from at least 3 different requests, 2 from Tracktown and 1 from Oregon 21. Important to know, Tracktown and Oregon 21 are separate organizations. But for 3 different events, for the NC2A Track Field Championships, for the Olympic trials, and for the 2021 games. I can tell you that Eugene and Springfield, at least my peers in Eugene and Springfield, really want us to be coordinating our response so that we, because we're all getting those requests. So I don't know what that means as it relates to a work session. I think if the board wants to have a work session, I would agree doing it on all of those requests. Even though they're separate requests, it's funding for tourism events, and we have really limited resources
And
to
track
support
and
these.
field, and the economics of track
Yes,
and
I
field.
could
events.
absolutely. So I'm not sure exactly where to go with that. The Traveling County one I wasn't aware of, so it may be beneficial to have Traveling County there too. So one thought is you either do a massive joint elected official meeting between the 3 governments,
Yep.
which has some benefits, but also a lot of challenges to that. Or we just acknowledge we're going to do them all separately to sort of hear what the requests are and then maybe have follow-up discussions with those different bodies.
Could we just maybe pose the idea, I'm just posing this and I'll call on you in a second. I'm just posing this idea to ease their presentation and also to really make it a great opportunity for them to present this, maybe here at Harris Hall or at the Springfield City Council chamber, I don't know if that's Springfield City Chamber won't be big enough, but at Harris Hall, have all 3 elected bodies watch the presentation, not only by Tracktown USA, not only by Eugene Cascades and Coast, but anyone else that is promoting track and field events, magnitude, large track and field events, and just have them give us a briefing, all of us,
Well-
in the fall. Now, maybe there's some better ideas, and Commissioner Verney, go ahead.
A briefing is different, is it not? I don't know, than a work session?
Yeah,
My
probably is.
concern is that I'm looking forward to learning about this, but is there a precedent that anyone can have us do a work session on the basis of a big request for dollars, where my understanding is our discretionary dollars are pretty finite? And I'm just wondering how that works. I don't know.
Jay?
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had requests like this come to the board before for us to support financially different events. We supported the Olympic trials, I think, previously, but it was one of the first ones. I think the board provided about $200,000 or something. I can't remember what the number was, but it was a while back. Yeah.
Several payments over 5 years.
Yeah, and it was, and it was, so my concern about this is this, we do have a limited of flexible funds. It either has to come out of our discretionary general fund, or we have to somehow or another tie it to, video lottery economic activity, which has to be tied to jobs, which I don't know if those are events, not permanent jobs. So it's tough to tie it to video lottery. Then the only thing beyond that is room tax, which we've pretty well tapped out in various other places. There's not a lot around. I would rather have this discussion as part of our budget than as a separate work session. And if they want to make a proposal for us to amend or to set it up in our budget and amend our budget to supply them with funds, let's balance it against everything else we're doing, then have it in a vacuum 3 months after we passed our budget and try and come up with one-time money or something. I just, we just finished talking about how we're going to up our game on winter strategies and how we're funding that. And here we have somebody walking in, and our first time, funding the first set of Olympic trials was supposed to be a one-off thing, and now they want us to come up with a $500,000. I'm having real difficulty, particularly seeing there's a lot of costs that come to Lane County with those events outside the fence line. The people that come here, the public safety and security issues that our sheriff's department has to deal with, Public Works, other things, there is a cost, and then they want us to supply the cost for inside the fence. If you get what I'm saying. So I'm really reluctant to set up a work session. I would rather discuss this over the next month as part of the budget. If we're going to start supplying money for these sort of events, we should set aside some money and set up a competitive process for making those decisions. Instead of having people send us a letter, come in one-off, and be the only people, getting swung those funds. It isn't fair or equitable.
My understanding is they're not asking for anything in this budget process. They want to have a briefing in the
They
fall.
specifically talk about $500,000 they want from the county. I don't know what that, if that's not, it's
Yeah,
not
but
maybe
it's-
this budget process, but they're
answer-
talking
Yeah,
about
but
getting
it's,
funding.
what I'm saying is, they're not asking for money in this budget. They're not trying to make an end run around this budget. They're not asking for money in this budget. They want to have a briefing about the economics of it. And by the way, a lot of the questions you just asked would be really good questions. Now, my impression is that they have returned more money than in terms of revenue than we have given them. That may not be true, but that's my impression. And that's what I'd like to raise at the work session, is to get that. But to be competitive, to receive these events in the future, we are going to have to play at a national, if not international level. And to do that, we're going to have to put money into it. Now, whether, I like the idea of having a briefing on the overall impact of these track and field events, and we may well, with the new state-of-the-art facility that'll be opening, we may well be a world-class place to hold these. But if we don't want to fund them, and if that's not the direction of our political leadership in Eugene and Springfield, Lane County, and that we don't want to do these events, we better communicate that, pretty soon, because as a community, we have to really want to do this. They don't just give these events to people that are kind of marginally